coming upon one of the structural features of the cistern. It includes a hatch, a ladder, and a staircase. Back in the day, this was the only way for engineers to come inside. There are 4 of these all around the space. When they needed to do any kind of repairs or check on it, first the water would be drained, and someone who was very strong could lift up those 50-pound. The 50-pound lid would come down the ladder. It might be a little slick because once the water was drained, there was probably sediment left over. Also, when they dropped down onto the ledge, it wasn't like the sidewalk we see here. It was only 2 foot wide. So if they happened to slip and fall, didn't catch the ladder or catch the stairwell just right, they'd slide right down into the water.
So once the Waterworks Company was incorporated as a municipal utility, Houston kept expanding their water system. However, they didn't do anything about sanitation. Now, from 1914 to 1929, there was actually a series of investigations by both federal and state health departments into Houston's water system. At the time, our water was not chlorinated. The water mains were cross-connected to private wells that were used for industrial and agricultural purposes, and there were no tests done on the water before it was piped into people's homes for drinking. As you can probably guess, the findings of these inquiries were not good. Now this marks the beginning of Houston slowly starting to deal with its water sanitation issues. The cistern was built during that time period and does reflect that. The water was pumped in untreated, but did then go to a treatment facility after leaving the cistern. So if you were getting water from the cistern, it was cleaner and healthier than if you were getting water from that steam-powered pumping plant. That plant was still active in 1926 when the cistern was built. And just to give you some idea about how Houston's water needs had changed and evolved, remember I said it was pumping 2 million gallons of bayou water a day back in 1879? It was pumping 20 million gallons of well water a day in 1926. That also gives you some idea of the importance of the cistern. Holding 15 million gallons, it was just under a day's water usage for the entire city. If there was ever an emergency, if something happened, we did have this strategic reservoir of water at our disposal. Now, Houston first tried to chlorinate its water in 1929. This was after a massive flood that knocked out that pumping station, and after we used all the water in the cistern, we realized we were facing a water shortage crisis. So what the city did was ask the well owners to release the water from their private wells back into the city water mains. But keep in mind, I said these wells were used for industrial and agricultural purposes, so they were heavily contaminated. The city realized this and said we need to chlorinate, but there were no chlorination machines. The city actually had to borrow them from the public school district. These machines were used by schools to chlorinate their swimming pools. They were not intended to chlorinate a city's water system. It was a massive fiasco, and the health department actually had to release a memo telling all Houstonians that if they intended to drink their water or use it for cooking, they needed to boil it first. And this went on for quite some time. It was not until 1933 that our water actually achieved full certification. That means a governmental agency has deemed it to be fit for all domestic and industrial usage, and there are preventative measures in place in case of toxins or pollutants getting into the water. So once we had finally dealt with all of our sanitation issues, we were once again able to address the growing demand. Houston kept expanding, so did our water needs. We were going to dam the San Jacinto River at first, but that seemed to be too costly. So what did we do? Drill more wells, tap into that aquifer. Unfortunately, this has resulted in a large subsidence issue. There are areas of Houston, particularly downtown in the Heights, that are about 3 to 4 feet lower than the rest of the city. You see, once you pump water out of an aquifer, the ground begins to sink, and you can't pump other stuff in like bayou water or sand or foam. It is actually an ongoing issue, and about 2 months ago, the Chronicle did run an article about how we're still dealing with land sinkage from pumping all that water out of the ground back in the 30s and 40s.
We've stopped here again to point out another feature that's original to the cistern. This 30-inch drain pipe has been in use ever since it's being built in 1926. Water is still coming out of it today, and it's not the water that was originally coming from the wells. This is actually the city water now, so it's almost like from your faucet or your hose. We're filling up a little water into the cistern right now. There was some maintenance done over the last week, and we try to keep it around 6 inches. Right now it's about 4 or 5 inches if we're lucky. And the water serves 2 purposes. One of the purposes is for you to enjoy the beautiful reflection of the light on the water and to create these beautiful illusions of the columns that you see as you walk around. Another reason is that this structure was kept underwater for most of its use, throughout all these years. And it's always had the water until recently, until we started doing these tours. So what we don't know is what would happen if the water was taken away from it suddenly and the concrete was allowed to dry out. We'd like to think that the water here, the humidity, helps keep its beauty secret and keeps it supple.
So we quickly realized that well water was not the solution to Houston's drinking water issues. And in 1954, we did finally dam the San Jacinto River. That's about 18 miles from here. That's Lake Houston. We own the water rights 100%, and it supplies us with access to 52 billion gallons worth of water. That was still not enough, and in the 60s we created Lake Livingston, and in the 70s Lake Conroe. Now we only own 70% of the water rights to those last two lakes, but for the time being at least, it does seem to have met our water needs. I'm sure everybody's noticed there's a little bit of an echo when I speak. It's actually most pronounced in this corner, and we like to do a little demonstration to illustrate that. If I could have everyone come down towards me, please. I'm going to hold my flashlight up and count to 3. When I hit 3, I want you to make as much noise as you can. Scream, shout, clap your hands, stomp your feet, whistle. But when I lower my flashlight, I'm going to need everyone to become silent simultaneously. And just listen, okay? 1, 2, 3. We have timed it. That echo lasts for 17 seconds. You guys want to try it again? Yeah, no group's ever like, no, let's get back to those water facts, please. All right. 1, 2, 3. Now, many people do